Oh god. Nope. Still don't have a new tripod. It's hot as fuck. I have a bunch of fans going on, so who cares? Hair is clipped up, that's how hot it is. So, um, the other day I saw the TV Glow. Now, when I initially was just kind of seeing trailers of it and all that stuff, I was like, why does this feel like that other movie I saw the other year, the like I want to go to the World's Fair, whatever the fuck it was called, and then I found out it's the same writer director. So I was like, all right, well, there you go. I just thought someone was like stealing like their aesthetic, their vibe of movies, because I was like, anyway. um, so I enjoyed the movie again, just because it's really weird and I really like weird shit, obviously, their other movie, the World's Fair one, was like very odd. That movie was more like bottled in the sense where it's like it was just like the girl and I think like a parent. I forgot. It was just like not a lot of people in the cast. You know what I mean? And a lot of it seemed to be very much filmed off of like, just like not like legit. Like it seemed like maybe like a really nice DSLR kind of thing, and then like this camera, a phone camera. It was a lot of that. But that movie is also very like digital age, like current age kind of stuff. This movie takes place in, well, the movie kind of goes along a timeline, but most of it, a good chunk of it, does take place in like the late '90s, early 2000s. So there's no smartphones. Um, Very much like a lot of VHS shit. So it's very nostalgic for me. Um, but yeah. So like I said, I enjoyed the movie. I'll go into spoilers a bit. Um, but I just want to say like, so I didn't know really what to think going in because again, I only know like I mean I all of us really only know their other movie, the World's Fair one, and you're like, well, if you do something weird like that, I wonder how weird you're gonna get. It's like when a bunch of us was like first seeing like Robert Eggers stuff and Ari Aster stuff, and you're like, okay, like the vibe that they all go by, and so with this person, you're like, okay, it's gonna it's gonna get very very weird. I mean, it's A24, so it's that A24 vibe, you know, and again, it's one of those movies where you know, I feel like if you're queer, you latch on this movie a lot more than if you weren't, or definitely if you're more like trans leaning, I guess you would say. Like queer, yes, but definitely if you are trans non-binary, all that stuff, I feel like this is definitely like something that you'd be like, oh, because I noticed that with like my letterbox. It's like the queer people rated it higher than the non-queer people. um, but anyway, so I'm gonna go into spoilers. One, two, three. Clap the freaking, fan spoilers. I ordered this fan for a market, and it was supposed to get here in time for the market, and then it told me no, it's gonna get there the next day. And then when I was like 2 hours at the market, I get an email saying, "Hey, your thing is delivered." Anyway, I mean, I was still fine, but Jesus Christ, it was hot outside. They do an outdoor market while there's a heat wave. Yeah. Anyway, so spoilers. So with the movie, you know, I saw the TV Glow. It's about a show that's very like the show itself, the show that the teenagers are talking about. It's very heavily, oh, it's very heavily influenced by Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Has bits of like Are You Afraid of the Dark kind of vibes. Old Are You Afraid of the Dark before like cell phones were introduced, like when they did that like newer season, like the 2000s, where it just didn't hit as well. Um, like that kind of stuff. And then there was kind of like Monster of the Week kind of thing. So it kind of had like the monster in the suit, like old first season of like Power Rangers kind of feel to it as well. So again, very nostalgic, had that stuff. And the fact that I said Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the actress who plays Tara is in that movie. Um, she's in there for a bit, and then there are like little cameos in the movie that like you either go, oh hey, when you see like Tara from Buffy, the guys who play Pete and Pete, you're like, that's them, because they're literally standing next to each other, and you just look at them, or you don't realize there's this kind of like cameo until like at one point, like, because you'd be like, wow, that voice sounds familiar, and then you just stare. Anyway, the dad of the main character guy is played by Fred Durst. And I'd even, it took me a minute to realize that because it was like, the dad had spoken up, and I was like, that voice sounds familiar. But you're like, whatever, right? And then there's like a shot where the dad's sitting on the couch just staring at the sun. And I was like, that face shape and stuff, like, that's so familiar. And then, like, at one point during the movie, I just had like a, oh my god, it's Fred Durst kind of reaction. You're like, oh shit. Um, so, so it's a movie, like I said, oh my god, I'm all over the place. This heat is getting to me. I have 3 fans running, so, um, yes, words and phrases. So like I said, it's a show. There's Monster of the Week kind of stuff. It's about these like 2 girls with like psychic abilities, and they use their psychic abilities to like fight the big bad. And it's a very like young adult tween kind of show. Again, something like I said, very nostalgic. Something you would have watched on WB back in the day. That kind of stuff. Like I said, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel. Was it Dark Angel? Was it Dollhouse? Like a lot of those like Joss Whedon type of shows. You know um, and so whatchamacallit, so the main character guy, he like meets this girl who's like this weird girl. She's reading like a kind of like a compendium, like episode guide of the show. And he's kind of like, oh, what's that? And she's like, oh, this show is like too weird for you, man. Like, it's not for you. And it was like, okay, And then I think they're about like 2 years apart, because I think the boy says he's in 7th grade and the girl says she's in 9th grade. Um, and so he lies to his mom, says, "Oh, I want to have a sleepover at Jimmy's house." I forgot the name, but like let's say Jimmy's house. But then he like walks down the block to the girl's house, goes in, and then like they like watch an episode together. And again, this is back in the day, so it's not like you could just start from episode 1. It's just whatever current episode is on. So they just watch an episode together, and it just becomes, and it's like he's hooked, he likes it. But the show was on like really late. The show was on at, they said 11:30. No, sorry. The show was on from 10:30 to 11, which is just like, what the fuck is on at that time? Like, that was like when they were like putting on like Hannibal. Like 10 to 11 is like when they had Hannibal on. You know what I mean? Like 10 to 11. Gee, that's like Law and Order time. What? On the young adult network. I mean, I think, just trying to think like late 90s, early 2000s. I think it wasn't until about late 90s, early 2000s that they ran shows to about 10:30, 11, because they did mention this in the movie where they're like, oh yeah, and then at 11 everything goes to like black and white reruns. And I remember that the Nick at Night stuff, you'd watch Nickelodeon, and then it would be about like 9 o'clock or something, 9, 10 o'clock, and yeah, you'd watch like I Love Lucy would be on, fucking Bewitched, what's the other, I Dream a Genie, that kind of stuff would be on. It wasn't till later that I think that shit shifted to like midnight, and then after a while, like it was just like it was just reruns of its own shit, and then Nick at Night had its own channel. Became TV Land. Um, anyway, just talking about how old I am, for God's sakes. But yeah, so it was some kind of show that went on that late, and so him being like, what's it, 7th grade, so he's like what, like 13, 14 or whatever shit. So he's just like, he can't stay up and watch it, because again, this is back in the day. You can't just like watch it on your phone. Not everyone has like multiple TVs in the house kind of thing. So his mom's like, no, you can't watch it. And also like the one TV is like occupied by like the dad in the living room, the Fred Durst, So, um, so the girl, because she's older and all that stuff, she just like, she records the episodes and gives him tapes, you know? And so he has like a stack of tapes, episode 1, episode 2, whatever, and they're kind of it's a little bit out of order, because again, when you watch the show, and sometimes like they don't have a new episode this like next week, and it's like, oh, they just reran like whatever episode. It could be the pilot, So he's kind of watching it a little bit out of order, which is fine, which that's not the point. So, and the weird thing with the show is just like, there's like that one time where like they're watching it together, and the girl, this is like a few years later, so by then they're both in high school, so 2 years later, so he's in 9th grade and she's like 11th, 12th grade, do the math, you know? And so that's when the exchanging of tapes really like happened and stuff, because they were in the same school. And they're watching like an episode together, and he's just kind of like insanely captivated by it, and the girl is like, like sobbing next to him, and it was like, what the fuck? And I'm watching this like, am I missing out on something? You know, like I'm not in the universe, so maybe I'm just like, am I missing out on something? Like this is weird, you know. Um, and then like the girl pretty much was like, we gotta like, she was like, we gotta leave, and it was like, okay, and it's like, you know, teenager stuff. We were like, I was like, I don't like to be home, Dad. You know, and I mean, there's like hints about like like her parental figures might possibly be abusive, but it doesn't really like fully say that. But either way, it's like a teenager wants to run away, and like that's just kind of like a typical story of like that's what teenagers do. Um, and so here's the part where I got kind of like, oh, I'm having an idea what's going on with this movie, where they meet up at the bleachers, and this is around the time where they're starting to exchange tapes and stuff like that, where the you find out that the girl is a lesbian, and you know she's a little bit ostracized because it is high school and all that stuff, and it's high school in like the early 2000s, you know. I think in the early 2000s you can't say you're full lesbian, you can say you're bi, you know. Some people, though, they, you know, all depending on what kind of, you know, crew they have to back them up so they don't get hate crimed as much, they can say they're lesbian. But then most people usually say bi if they want to be out like that, especially, you know. Um, and then I remember some girls would say that they're bi just to get guys' attention, but let's not even get into that. So, you know, she's a little ostracized, so she doesn't really have, like, much friends. Um, so she really just has like the dude. And then she kind of asks him, like, well, do you like girls? And he's like, I like TV shows. And his voice was so weird throughout the entire movie. I think this is what the actor's voice sounds like, because he always plays like the awkward dude, but like maybe he just put on the voice more. I don't know. He was in like Detective Pikachu, and like he always plays like the awkward nerdy guy, but I think it's like he's never really like the main character. He's just there. So it's the first time where like, you know, I had to like really listen to his voice a lot. So maybe I don't know. But yeah, he was the only one besides like the cameos that were kind of like known actors. Everyone else is like I've never heard of them before, which is a good thing when it comes to these kind of movies, you know, because you don't want to be like, wow, that's. It's like when you watch like a found footage movie and it's like, oh, this is found footage, da da da, and you're like, that's that guy, and, you know. Anyway, so him being like, oh, like when she asked, do you like girls? And he goes, I like TV shows, and I was just like, ah, okay, okay, this guy's weird. But like, no, obviously not in a bad way. But like, you know, because you know, it's the normal thing. Sorry, the fucking, it's blowing dust in my face now. Okay, I'm gonna put this over here. Just gonna put this here. Ugh, just like dust all over my face. Okay, so you know, he's weird because, you know, with teenagers, people are like, I like boys, I like girls, da da da, and he's just like, I like TV shows, and I was like, oh my god, is that me? Is that me? You know, and you're like, this kid's weird. And then I also was like feeling like because of like when the timeline jumped 2 years and they're both in high school together, and the girl had like this kind of like the way her hair was like dyed and all that stuff, and then they would show the show, and the show was like a black girl and a white girl, and then like, you know, they would have like these like glowing tattoos in the back of the neck, and then the one girl had like kind of, it's very subtle because like they ran the like they shot it on 35 millimeter and then like ran it through VHS processing to give it like that, you know, that old look. But like that girl, like it's subtle, but she also had like little streaks in her hair. In my head I was like, are they them? Like in my head I was thinking like, are they the characters in the show? But obviously he's a boy out here in reality, I guess you would call it. But in the show it's a girl. So again, that also adds to like, kind of thing. You know what I was saying when he was like, oh, I like, you know, uh, TV shows. And then when the son was asking like, hey, can I stay up to watch the show? And the mom's like, no, you can't. Curfew again. And the dad's like, isn't that a girl show? Which again, kind of, you know, had my ears perk up, like, that kind of stuff. So the girl like ends up running away, and like all they find is like just like her TV on fire, like an old CRT fucking Zenith on fire in like her backyard or something, which, you know, I understand. um and so like she was just gone, just never seen again. And also this part of the movie is where like narration comes in, but like it's the characters talking directly, break the fourth wall kind of thing, which I got confused. The heat, which I got confused at first because like the guy, like he rolls over and he's looking at camera, but it's kind of dark, and he's like, and then we haven't seen her since then, and blah 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 blah, and I was like, oh, his mouth is moving. Because sometimes they'll do like narrations and the characters are staring at camera, but but it's like, oh, okay, he's actually talking to camera. He's talking to audience. Um, and that happens after that. Like it kind of starts happening a lot more in the movie. So it's not as like confusing and weird and all that stuff. Um, so then you really know that like you are you are part of the story, but you know what I mean. Like you as the audience member, you're like, okay, this is not just like a typical like weird coming of age story. This is not within the same reality, and so it kind of jumps like 8 years or something, and I think it's like he's out of college. Yeah, because like after 8 years, it's like so he should be out of high school, out of college, and he got a job, at like some movie theater and all that stuff, and it's just kind of he's kind of not living life, he's like his mom dies and his dad's just a piece of shit, and then like just things aren't going well, and then one day like he sees the girl at the grocery store, like he's shopping, and the girl's just standing there, and she's like, do you remember me? And he's like, what? And they hang out, and then she's like, because another thing is like when the girl went missing, that's the show also got canceled, and it was like, what? And then she was like, did you ever see like the technically the series, like the finale for season 5? And he's like, no. And then like I guess I think it was like she had a tape of it. Anyway, so he watched it, and the finale was like that both of the characters got like buried alive and all that stuff, and that was like really like weird. I'm imagining. Oh, also kind of like Goosebumps, like the Goosebumps show. But like it was just like so weird because like whatever like CGI they did with that moon mask thing, it was so crazy because it like undulated, and it was like, here you go, and put like Luna juice, like put like this cum colored shit, like big old straw down her throat, and then they get buried alive. It was just like, okay, because we're at the point of the movie where you're like, sure, why the fuck not? You know what I mean? It's kind of like with the World's Fair movie that at one point, like she just starts like pulling tickets out of her fucking skin, and it was like, sure, why the fuck not? Like I'm already this far in, and then it's like it was like the show finale, and then the thing was like, I'm gonna take you to the moon realm, and it shows like a snow globe, and inside a snow globe is like a young version of the guy, like him, like back in 7th grade, where they had the younger actor sitting in front of a television screen, and that's when I was like, okay, so my suspicions was correct, is that this is them, this is them, and this is a kind of like trans allegory kind of thing because the writer director is trans. So I was like, okay, ah, ha 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 ha. I had a feeling, but I didn't want to be like, well, they're trans, or they're writing a trans story kind of thing. But I was like, aha, I knew it, And so it was just like, what, and blah, 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 all that stuff. And so, you know, the girl was like telling him like, hey, did you ever feel like time moved differently when we were younger? And he was like, I don't know, I guess, because he's just kind of like coasting through life, like he's not living it, it's just like day by day things just like happen, and he's not like doing much. Like I said, he works at a movie theater, he's just not really happy, he's just kind of there kind of stuff. And she was saying how like time felt it moved differently. She said she like left here, and then she realized like it was us in the show, and it was like, what? And you're like, I don't get it. And then they do some flashbacks of, because in the beginning of the movie you see the black girl in the show, she had this purple dress on, they're like out in the field, da da da, and then it flashbacks to the characters, the art, I guess, reality characters, not TV show characters. They're in the football field, and the guy is wearing the same purple dress, and you're like, okay, like like you're like, is this kind of a like hallucinate thing between two people? But it's also like, well, the parents, like everyone knew there was a show called The Pink Opaque, so it wasn't like it was completely thought of. But then it was like somehow these two people had seen the show a specific way, because there was a third girl, like there was a third girl, funny, there was a third person when the boy first went to go watch the show. It was the girl, like it was the main girl, Jesus, I'm just saying, I think her name's Maddie. Then there was a friend, and then he was there, and then that was the friend that like stopped talking to her and then caused like all this stuff to be ostracized and all this stuff. But funny enough, I think I looked it up. That girl also plays like the Moon character and all these other like weird makeup characters. Just again, like the nostalgia thing to have you be like, somebody looks familiar, you know. And so yeah, so it was just like, what the fuck? So like the show does exist. So you get like towards the end of the movie where they're saying like 20 years has gone by, and he works at a freaking like arcade, like a Chuck E. Cheese kind of thing. And at the Chuck E. Cheese kind of place, they have things that are kind of like the show. They have like this kind of like Mr. like Moon thing, and then there's other stuff where you're just like, oh, so this is made up. This is from your head. Is this weird, again, this weird collective thing? Is it? Is it not? I don't know. You know? And it was, so at one point he has like this complete like breakdown during like one of those happy birthday kind of moments, but everyone around isn't like, the fuck you screaming at. They all just kind of like this, and he goes in the bathroom to, I guess, just chill the fuck out. Then he like takes a knife and just like cuts open himself, and it's just like static, you know, TV coming out, and you're like, sure. And then he goes to put his shirt back on. He goes out and continues his job, and you're like, wait, what? No blood, no nothing, you know. Again, all in his head, and he's going around, and like people are playing games. No one's looking at him, but like not in a I'm ignoring you kind of way, but like they just, you know, there's in their game. And he goes, hey guys, sorry to bother. I was on new medication. Sorry, I'm sorry. Okay, no one's really responding to him. Like it's like no one really sees him. Just kind of like how he's going through life, where no one really sees him. And then the movie just like ends with that, because he like after that, like after the girl explains all this stuff to him, and then like I said, 20 years later go by, like it just like, again, it's just, you know, just you're like, that's it right there. You just find yourself going, well, was the show real or not? Because he later was like, oh, you can, like, the show is now on streaming services, all that stuff. And he looked it up. He's like, hey, let me watch it. It's been forever. And he like puts it on. He's like, the show is cheesy as fuck. It's not at all what I remember. Sure, there was like that ice cream thing, but it's like so hokey. It's not two girls with psychic powers. It's like a group of kids being like, hey, you're bad, you know, that kind of shit. And it's like, I'm an ice cream monster, look at me in this rubber suit, you know, kind of stuff. And then they're like, we're gonna defeat you, Brace is talking, you know, kind of stuff. And it was just like, okay, you know, so you find yourself wondering, my god, the fucking dust, too many fans running. You find yourself just being like, what the fuck, you know? Like, so, was this, like, brought on by his own mental shit? Was it because the two of them together mentally made this up? Was it mainly, like, the girl was fucked up, and because he was just, like, so young and, like, susceptible to anything, that, like, he also just kind of, like, I guess not really mass hysteria, because it's one person, there's just two of them, but, like, it just, like, he just followed along and then, like, had the same type of going on, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, it also had me wonder, like, she had a book with the guide of every episode and all that stuff, but then he finds that book, and that book is on fire, so it's not like you can reference it back to be like, oh wait, no, look, flip through, this isn't the show, this is different, this is, like, about hokey monsters and, foam rubber suits. What you're thinking is like some weird fucked up shit. But anyway, yeah, so like I enjoyed the movie. It is very weird. It's one of those, like, when it ends you're like, wait, what? Kind of moments. You like have to think for a bit. My camera's about to die. But yeah, like I said, I enjoyed it. This is the type of movie I'm really into, because before that I watched Challengers and I was like, yeah, who cares? People have threesomes. What the fuck? They didn't get gay enough? Whatever. Who cares? Okay, Zendaya's really thin. Move on with my day. This one, I'm just like, yeah, give me the weird shit. Give me the weird shit. But anyway, so that's it. It's really hot. I'm dying.